So welcome again to our July session of BusinessWise Insiders. The presentation this morning will last 20-25 minutes, after which we'll come back to the room we were just in and have a breakout discussion. You'll have a chance to introduce yourself, ask questions, and share your own thoughts on today's topic with some of our wise guys as well as our other attendees. You can also always ask questions, provide feedback, express disagreement with something, or just say good morning in the chat window during the presentation. And if we don't get to it during the presentation itself, we'll be sure to touch on it in our discussion afterward. So the title of today's presentation may ring a bell to some of our regular insiders. It's based on a quiz that we developed several years ago to highlight a set of winning behaviors that we've identified as the most important to sales success. Some of these skills and behaviors have remained the same, but some have changed and evolved to keep pace with trends in B2B business development. So even if you remember some of the old answers, some of the new ones may surprise you. So as we get started, what I'm going to do is there's basically 7 questions with a multiple choice set of answers. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll that should appear alongside the presentation. You'll see all 7 questions and you can answer them at your leisure. And then afterward in the breakout discussion, we'll talk about the results of the poll as well as how they compare with some of the ideas and insights we'll be talking through today. So with that, let's turn to question 1. So the first question is, a master sales hunter is most likely to say what? Number 1, I set goals, then I achieve them. Number 2, I have boundless energy and stamina. Number 3, professional sales is my career identity. Or number 4, I'm 100% confident in my abilities. And I just want to emphasize at this point that a lot of the answers, pretty much all of the answers that you'll see in response to these questions are positive behaviors that pretty much all sales reps should seek to embody and put to work. But in our experience and our research working with clients over the past 40 years, we've really honed in on 7 specific answers, 7 specific behaviors. So we'll talk about which ones that we believe are the most important. And then, of course, happy to hear your ideas and opinions later in the breakout discussion. So for us, the correct answer to this first question brings us to the first and what we believe to be the most extremely important sales skill, which is actually more of a mindset than a behavior or skill set. The most successful sales reps are the ones who treat professional sales as their career identity. And they approach it with the same commitment to quality and integrity as any other respectable profession. Deb mentioned at the outset of the presentation the idea of being in a profession where you're working outside in the heat and humidity. We are lucky enough not to have to do that, but all jobs are the same in the sense that we should treat them as our professions and hold ourselves to a set of standards with respect to integrity and pride so that we seek to do the best job possible for our clients. And this skill is near and dear to our hearts at BusinessWise because it gets at the core of why we do what we do. Our job at BusinessWise, of course, we provide prospect data, is really to help salespeople sell better. A big piece of that is helping sales reps connect with more of their best prospects using the trustworthy contact data I just mentioned, but it's also just as important to approach your job as a sales rep with pride and dignity. So here our intrepid sales professional is saying, professional sales is my career identity. I dispute the perception that sales reps are untrustworthy. Just like a doctor or lawyer, I offer my clients and prospects a valuable service, and I take pride in my career as a trusted advisor. Now, we've included a quote here from one of our favorite and most reliable sales thought leaders, Anthony Iannarino of the Sales Blog, and he asks, how much should your clients have to pay for your advice? It's a great question to keep in mind because it gets right at how this professional mindset separates sales masters from the competition. If you as a sales rep don't provide professional level advice and guidance that is separate from the product or service you sell, you're just another commodity. Your advice is worth something, and you should take pride in that fact. And here we have just a few tips for reminding yourself about the importance of sales professionalism. The first is to consider the difference between what a job is and what a profession is. A job is something you do because you have to, and a profession is a career that you pursue with energy and passion. A profession requires training, education, and dedication. And then logically, if sales is a profession, then you provide a service, again, separate from your product. What is that service? How do your clients benefit from it? And then finally, make it about your own standards for quality and integrity. If you live up to those, there won't be any reason to doubt your trustworthiness or effectiveness. And the reason we start here is that a professional approach to sales really sets the stage for everything else that we'll discuss in today's presentation. But before I turn to the next question, I just wanted to invite Deborah to offer any additional insights or thoughts on this particular behavior.
Thanks, Sam. I think it's important that we remember that our focus at BusinessWise is in the early stages of the sales process, before your first appointment. That being a sales hunter is the process of engaging and getting that first time opportunity and what happens in that first connection. So when we think about sales hunting and professionalism, I think it's really important to realize that the early part of the sales process is one that's often overlooked. People will say, oh, just get me an appointment and then I'm fine. Well, getting that first appointment is part of the professional process. And that's really where we're focusing here.
It's a great point, and it really gets at the fact that moment, when you're talking later in the process about your product or service, you have a specific, distinct thing to offer to your prospect to solve the problem that they have. Early in the process, they may not even be thinking about buying, so you have to bring other ideas to the table, and that's where your role as a trusted advisor, as somebody to help shift your prospect's perspective, comes into play, and that's really where professionalism, I think, is at its most important. All right, so moving on to question 2, and you can work along with me in the poll if you like. A master sales hunter is most likely to be a, number 1, good listener, number 2, savvy questioner, number 3, prospect pain anticipator, or number 4, effective rapport builder. And again, these are obviously all good qualities, but for our purposes, the skill here that separates the most successful sales reps is their ability to anticipate their prospects' pain points, the challenges that are holding their prospects back from achieving their objectives and addressing their priorities. And anticipating a prospect's pain starts with the notion that, just as Deb mentioned, your prospects need a reason not just to buy from you, but to engage with you in the first place, at the very beginning of the sales process. Before you can give them a reason to engage with you, you need to know what matters to them. And that's why the word anticipate is really critical here. It's not just about discovering pain by asking open-ended questions. Anybody can do that. But when a sales rep anticipates a prospect's pain, that separates you from the competition by showing your prospect that you have and provide unique value. And the idea of an appointment with you becomes that much clearer and harder to resist. Now, again, we've selected a quote here from Anthony Iannarino to reinforce this concept. And he says, the truth is you should know where your client has problems and needs better results without even asking. And then here are a few quick takeaways about prospect pain that can be helpful in emphasizing why anticipating it and bringing ideas to the table to shift your prospect's perspective about it is so important. So the first is, don't ask no. Anybody can ask questions to uncover pain, and successful sales reps already know the answer to those questions. So there's a difference in intensity between major pain and a minor problem. The latter, a problem, is merely inconvenient, while the former is what drives action. And understanding the challenges that fall into each of those categories and emphasizing pain over problem is really critical. And then finally, there's also a difference between present pain and future pain. So the prospect may already be fully conscious of their present obstacles to success, but if you can show them the obstacles they are likely to face in the future and thereby change their perspective on what they're doing in the present, they will perceive more value and have an even bigger reason to engage with you. Deb, did you have anything to add here before we moved on?
I think this really gets to thinking about the prospect's point of view. When you ask questions of your prospect generally knows the answers, and that doesn't help them. But when you already take them, begin the conversation from these ideas that you already know, and maybe results or ideas that you can help them further their thinking, that makes a big difference and gives them something that they don't already know.
Right. And I think it's important to point out that, 5 or 10 years ago, the answer to this question was a little bit different. The sales reps who could ask questions to elicit information about pain were considered sort of the gold standard. And that has really shifted because there's so many people out there asking these types of questions and not providing the insights that come along with them. And we'll talk in the breakout discussion about ways to ask questions that show your insight. So it's a little bit of both, moving the conversation forward while also showing that you know things that are valuable to your prospect and can help change their perspective. All right, so moving on to question 3. A master sales hunter is most likely to, number 1, focus on solutions. Number 2, offer insights and value. Number 3, know their product inside and out. And number 4, build long-lasting relationships. Again, all good things, but, and you probably gathered this from our discussion on the previous section, continuing the theme from the previous winning behavior, today's most successful sales reps are the ones that take the next step from anticipating a prospect's pain to providing the insights and ideas that will help them overcome that pain. And since these ideas and insights come from you, your experiences and knowledge, they are truly unique, and your prospects can't get them anywhere else. So when you successfully demonstrate unique insights to your prospects, they will see the value in engaging with you. In a recent survey by the RAIN Group, which is a sales training and consulting organization in Boston, they asked B2B decision makers what factors they take into account when agreeing to connect with the seller in the first place, and 63% said that they consider whether the seller offers something of value. The only factors that scored higher were, number 1, whether the prospect had a clear need for the product or service, or 2, whether they had the budget. So those are sort of the obvious immediate things that drive action on the prospect's part, but right behind it was whether the seller was offering something of value in that initial engagement. So hopefully that emphasizes how important this is, even in the minds of your prospects. And here's a great way to home in on that value you provide as a professional sales advisor. Imagine your prospects are asking themselves, what do I get in return for doing this thing, even if I never become a client? And 3 really good answers are, they get knowledge about the key forces and trends that will shape your prospect's industry. You provide intelligence about your prospect's competitors and how they prepare for future success. And then most importantly, you provide and change their perspective, as we've mentioned already. You provide new information that will help your prospect redefine what success really looks like and clarify the decisions they face as they seek to achieve it. Deb, anything from you here?
You're good, Sam.
Great. All right, so moving on to question 4. So a master sales hunter is most likely to what? Number 1, cold call and email consistently. Number 2, focus on their strengths. Number 3, master digital sales channels. Or number 4, avoid digital sales channels. And the answer here boils down to the fact that sales reps who stay strictly within their comfort zone or who focus on or avoid any one prospecting channel are less flexible, strategic, and effective. So in contrast, sales reps who combine email, cold calling, and other channels in a strategic, streamlined sales cadence have higher odds of generating leads, opportunities, and appointments. And here's a crazy statistic that reinforces this point. According to SalesLoft, response rates are 77% lower and 91% lower for prospecting cadences that use only email or only cold calls compared with those multi-channel cadences. So you can see that it really makes a difference in bottom line results. Successful sales reps understand this fact, and they use a strategic multi-channel cadence to considerably boost their odds of making that connection. In 2022, successful sales cadences increasingly used some degree of automation to improve efficiency and effectiveness, and obviously that has increased exponentially in the couple of years since. We just did a presentation last month on automation in sales. And the point here is that you have multiple tools available to you, both in terms of the channels you use to reach your prospects and the ways you can maximize the tandem effort of those tools to increase your odds of creating a connection. And the best sales reps are the ones who put everything in the same bucket and develop a strategy that's multi-pronged and multi-channel. You may be wondering what I mean by automation. Of course, we've talked about AI, and it's the forefront of everybody's mind in terms of tools that you can use to enhance your sales prospecting efforts. But here, business-wise, many of our clients use automation in the form of automated email prospecting campaigns, which we call AEP, as a core part of their lead gen strategy. And just to show you how it might work, here's an example of a typical AEP campaign that we manage for our clients. We work with clients to develop a series of 3 messages, an initial message, and then 2 follow-ups. Whenever a prospect replies, the sequence stops for that prospect. And then each prospect receives that sequence over the course of a couple of weeks with intervals of up to a week between messages, just like they would if a human sales rep were sending one-off emails. New prospects are added gradually to the campaign, so the campaign runs over several months. And the idea here is that an automated email campaign where you're reaching out and touching your prospects is running in the background without any effort from you, delivering replies gradually to your inbox as long as the campaign is active. And again, this really goes into the benefit of consistency. The best and most effective sales reps are the ones who day in, day out, work their process, make cold calls, send emails. And when you add automation into the mix, it can really ensure that you're doing it on a consistent basis and reaching prospects at the right time with the right message. So just a few quick takeaways here. The first, again, is that you have a lot of tools in your sales toolbox these days, but a tool is only effective as its user. It's the decisions that you make about how to use and combine the tools at your disposal that make all the difference. With that in mind, think about what you're trying to achieve in the various facets of your biz dev strategy, and then select the right tool for the job. For example, an automated email to your broad target market might be something that you use to reach your B and C tier prospects, whereas a cold call where you do some research, anticipate their pain, that might be used for your top tier prospects, your list of 50 or 100 best prospects. So it's about tailoring the tool to the objective. And then finally, automation could lead to dramatic efficiency gains that you can use to rewire your entire biz dev strategy. So if you have the automated campaign working in the background, you can redirect your time and energy to those more high value opportunities. Deborah, anything from you here?
It's important to be realistic about all of these processes. As frustrating as it is when we've already engaged with a prospect, if we don't make that sale, it's terrible. I mean, and we've all been there. But generally, our percentages are at least 20, 30%, even more of success. When you're doing this initial prospecting, your success rate is much lower. And at the same time, so critical, because if you can't get that first appointment, nothing else can happen. So what Sam is presenting here is a way to improve those statistics, even though the numbers are never as high as you're going to want them to be.
Right. I think it's, we've talked so much over the past few years of how it's, meaningful connections require a growing amount of your time and energy. So it really is on us to use the tools at our disposal to make that as efficient as possible, make sure that the time and energy you are spending is going towards the highest value opportunities, and multi-channel cadences, that are developed strategically and include automation are what separate the best from the rest in terms of how they devote and allocate their time. All right, so moving on to question 5. A master sales hunter is most likely to, number 1, deftly manage conflicts. Number 2, exhibit empathy. Number 3, follow their sales process. Or number 4, get consistent results. And again, all of these behaviors will benefit today's sales reps, but the one that really sets the best apart from the rest is, as we just mentioned, the ability to build and follow a strong sales process from the beginning. So why is that important? So here you have our sales machine saying the outcome is up to my prospect, but the process is within my control. Just as Deb mentioned, we can focus on results all we want, and we can be disappointed that they're not where we would want them to be. But that's not really in our control. But building and executing a process is very much within the realm of what you can control and determine. He also says a strong process is win-win for both my prospect and me. And if I focus on delivering value, I will earn trust, respect, and more sales. As again, Anthony Iannarino puts it, the sales process cannot start without a conversation with the decision maker or a contact who agrees to meet with you. Without that initial contact, there is no sales process. So when you focus on results or other steps farther along in the process, you lose sight of that all-important first step. In contrast, when you build and follow a process centered on giving your prospect a reason to engage at the beginning, you open your funnel wider to more opportunities that drive your process forward through sheer inertia. So if you really focus on feeding opportunities into the pipeline, those opportunities will propel themselves forward when you focus on offering value at the beginning and then at every stage moving forward. So a few important takeaways here. Since you need to execute your process confidently, you need to be able to trust it. So you build a prospect around what allows you to be comfortable delivering value to your prospect. That might be different for sales rep A versus sales rep B. A might be a better cold caller and B might be more comfortable sending emails. Again, you want to find the right mix of sales channels, but it's really about making the right fit for you so that you can comfortably and confidently provide value to your prospect. Second, once you build it, reinforce it. For example, through regular structured sales meetings and debriefs with colleagues that get everyone on the same page and working with the process in sync with each other. And then finally, it's often helpful to write your process down, to make a playbook, and then measure the effectiveness with which it propels opportunities through your pipeline. And of course, you don't have to stick to your process after you build it. You can monitor and refine to improve it over time, and you absolutely should. Deborah, anything to add here?
You're good.
All right, let's keep moving. So question 6, a master sales hunter is most likely to, number 1, gain experience on the job, 2, be likable and sociable, 3, network strategically, or 4, invest in formal training. This is a tough one because, again, all 4 of these are great things, great behaviors for sales reps to exhibit. And as a sales rep, there are lots of ways to get better at honing your skills, but the last 2 behaviors, the answer to this question and the next one, are really the biggest differentiators when it comes to sales success. And the first here is that sales masters invest in formal sales training. Now, this is a perfect follow-up to our first winning sales behavior, which, as you recall, was the importance of viewing sales as your career identity. Because if sales is a highly skilled profession on par with other professions, then it's not something that you can expect to learn on the fly and succeed at the highest level. It requires formal training. Using sports as an analogy, amateur athletes and weekend warriors can get by without training, but the professionals learn from the best. They take time, they seek out the best coaches, and they practice based on skills and behaviors that have proven successful in the past. And the difference is in the results. As our sales athlete puts it, I know the difference between a sale and a lost opportunity is often very small. And when I invest in sales training, I learn what works and what doesn't, and gain that critical, small, but important edge on my competitors. And the numbers bear out this concept. According to ADT Sales Enablement, continuous training results in 50% higher net sales per employee, which is pretty staggering. And you can see how this relates back to some of the other skills we've covered, like planning and professionalism. When you treat sales as a skilled profession based on methodical processes and protocols, the value of formal training becomes more clear. It helps you learn and build critical skills. It helps you stay current so that when your buyer trends change, you'll be ready. And then both of those benefits require you to stay consistent because continued success requires continuous training. And we would strongly urge you to explore the sales training options available to you and enroll your sales reps, and we'd be happy to provide recommendations if you're interested. Deborah, anything from you?
Again, thinking about the term sales hunter, if you're not when you are a sales hunter, the beginning part of the process is sometimes overlooked in sales training, or it's just given a real brief part of the training itself. Make sure that when you're looking for good training and coaching, that there is time and wisdom provided to the beginning part of getting those first-time appointments.
All right, so now we're on to our final question. A master sales hunter is most likely to be a lifelong learner. Number 2, consistent role player. Number 3, student of psychology. Or number 4, talented teacher. And that brings us to our final master sales skill, which is the importance of consistent role play. Because if training is a logical follow-up to sales as a profession, then role playing is the logical next step after that. Because you're trained to learn certain skills and tactics, and then you practice those skills and tactics in order to perform them optimally. As our sales role player would explain it, I know I'll perform better if I practice my craft. The more I rehearse challenging scenarios, the more confident I'll be when they arise in the real world. And finally, if I don't role play, I may fail to convert prospects into clients. A 2016 publication by Brainshark, and this is admittedly a little bit out of date, but it's still pretty crazy to think about. When training is reinforced by in-the-field coaching, companies see up to 4 times the ROI from training programs alone. So, just enrolling in formal training, going to a class, coming back and expecting you to know and do everything well at that point is not enough. You actually have to practice it to put it into to work for you. And we know that role playing isn't every sales rep's favorite thing to do, but it really does work, and we've seen it here at BusinessWise. We do it often. In fact, we have a standing Friday afternoon cold call clinic where we practice a variety of phone prospecting scenarios, and the consistency has really helped our reps more comfortable with the format of cold calling, and more important, has improved their skills tremendously. Again, we'd be happy to offer ideas for how to structure role play or suggest topics, but here are a few quick tips on effective role play. Number 1, role play is not just about indoctrinating sales reps with skills and scripts. It's about making them more comfortable and confident through that increased repetition. So role play helps you confidently be yourself. It's not about memorization. It's about sort of instilling these fundamentals so that you can deploy them effortlessly and confidently. Number 2, when you practice playing the role of prospect, you gain perspective and empathy that can help you when you're on the other side of the conversation. What I mean by that is sometimes take a turn actually playing the prospect in your role play. So you're the one who's answering the phone and putting your colleagues to the test. And doing that can really help you understand what is going through a prospect's mind when they pick up a cold call or receive a cold email, and can be really valuable later on. And then finally, positive feedback is more likely to result in behavior change than negative feedback. One study from several years ago said that the ideal ratio is 6 positive comments for every 1 negative comment. So it's really not just picking on what your colleagues or you are doing wrong, but reinforcing what you're doing right, and trying to reorient your behavior toward those skills. Deborah, anything before we go to the breakout discussion?
I'm ready to go to the breakout.
Great. Well, thanks again, everybody, for attending, and hope to see you in the breakout room.